Hey fellow mountain bikers, want to do a really quick video about kind of a pre-ride tune you can do for your mountain bike just to help it keep working better for longer, going to reduce overall maintenance costs, just going to keep things working well. You're going to be able to go out on your ride and know that your bike is working as well as it can be. Let's get into it. So the first thing I like to do is clean and lube the stanchions and all the suspension components. That's your dropper post, your fork, your rear shock if you've got it. What I like to use for this is a silicone-based polished, like Pedro's Bike Lust. I've been using this for a really long time, and overall I just think it works really well. It seems to protect the seals, makes stanchions more slippery, helps shed dirt, just make it not stick as much, so it works really well. Another good one is Mountain Flow's polish. It's also really good for suspension components. So I'm just going to use Bike Lust because that's what I've got. Basically what you do is you take a clean rag and you want to kind of get any major junk off there. You can just flake it off, but then put some polish on that clean rag and just floss. So you're trying to kind of floss around the upper part of the seal and then kind of polish the whole rest of the stanchion. And you just want to make sure you're using that clean rag and any dirt that's on there is being carried off. So flossing it around to carry dirt away. And then put some polish on the stanchions. It's really helpful on the rear shock too. I mean, this is just going to make it so you don't have to service your suspension quite as often because your seals aren't having to work as hard because they're not fighting to not ingest dirt. So you're just kind of keeping them clean. Takes no time before a ride, but it'll let you know you're out there, you're not going to be hurting your bike from the beginning. So your bike's fresh for each ride. Super helpful. The next thing, you're going to want to make sure you have a lubed chain. So I hot wax my chain and that lasts quite a while. I love it. Doesn't attract any dirt. It just stays super clean. It lasts a long time. Highly recommended. Next best thing in my opinion is a drip wax. Silka Super Secret's good. The Squirt is actually what I've had the best results with. I only have this little bottle right now, but the main thing with drip wax is you want to make sure your chain is oil-free, and then you want to apply it the night before you ride. So you want it to have a full, at least 12 hours to really set up. So that's key. If you live in a really wet climate, you know, some kind of an oil-based wax like a T9 is totally fine. You just need to apply it more, you need to wipe off all the excess, but in any case, just make sure your chain is lubed. Can't tell you how many times I've had people come into the shop and their bike just seems trash. It just doesn't shift right, it sounds awful, and it just turns out their chain is just totally dry. Oftentimes it's people who've been riding and they clean their bike really well and they, you know, their chain just gets super dry. And they just don't think, oh, you know, they think my chain is clean, but they don't put it together how important that lube is. So before you go ride, just make sure you check that your chain is lubed. Okay, a final thing that seems pretty silly is check your through axles. Just make sure they're tight. I've had plenty of times when I've been on a ride, someone's shifting is off, the braking's weird, can't figure out what it is, check everything only to realize through axles come loose. They do work themselves loose, just check them. The last thing I would say you should do before every ride is check your tire pressure. I just use a gauge on my pump, but you know, just making sure your tire's at the appropriate pressure for what you're riding and that bike before every ride is going to make sure your bike's ready to go. So those few little things, I mean, they take me a couple minutes to do before every ride, but that way I know I can go out, my bike is working right, I'm not having to worry about it, having a major mechanical out there on the trail. And especially stuff like with the suspension, that's just gonna make it so you don't have to do seal maintenance as often. You don't have to work on your suspension as often. That's an expensive and time-consuming thing. Chain, it's gonna make your drivetrain last longer, it's gonna make it shift better, it's just gonna make everything better. So I hope those very minor things can help you have a better ride, make your bike work better, longer. Have fun out there. Thanks a lot. Like and subscribe.